Welcome back, guys, to the next installment of my Lightweight Java Games Library tutorial. And right after the last one, I just remembered that we forgot to add the Lightweight Java Game Library to our actual project here. So we're going to do that right now. Make sure you have the Lightweight Java Game Library extracted somewhere on your computer. I extracted mine to my workplace because it's a pretty easy place to find it. And then you want to go into this folder right here. Or it doesn't have to be the same version as mine, but as long as it's not the Java doc or the applet one, go into this folder. Then you want to go into jar, and then you'll see all of these jars over here. The only one we need right now is this one, so just take the LWJGL jar and drag that over into our source folder, and then hit OK to copy files, and then we now have it in there. Right click on the tutorial, click Properties, and then go over to Java Build Path, add jars, and then go to the tutorial folder to source, and then you'll find it right here. Something else that we actually need to add first is we need to add the native files. So just take this entire folder labeled native and drag that into your source as well. And copy files and folders, yes. And then it'll import. And this can take a minute. And then once that's done, now you can go back into the properties. Hit this down arrow right next to lwjgl.jar, and then native library location, go to edit, and then workspace, find the tutorial file, and then go to source and native, and then click on whichever operating system you're on. Click on Linux if you're on Linux, or Windows if you're on Windows, or Mac, Solaris, whatever. Click on whichever one you're currently using, click OK, and then click OK again, and we should be set. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some initialization code, and we're going to hopefully get a blank screen up and running. So what you want to do is run display dot, and then you want to set display mode, and then you want to create a new display mode, and this new display mode is going to take in the width and the height of the screen. So go ahead, right under running, add public static, and we're going to make it an int width and height. And for the width, we're just going to make it 800 right now, and the height is just going to be 600. For now, we can change that later. But with what we're doing now, it'll make it easier to actually add it like this. You might need to import it. If you're importing this, though, make sure you're importing the one from org.lwjgl.opengl and not java.awt. Make sure it's this one right here. Click that, and then it will add the imports. Let's see, and for initialize, make sure we throw the exception, and then we should be fine because it's being caught right up here. Now, what we want to do is we want to set the title to be tutorial zombie game, or whatever you want it to be when it first appears. Now we're going to create the display. That code right there is going to make it appear on our screen, but it's not actually going to do anything. But before then, actually, we should set vsync enabled, because it's a good thing to have, and it will also limit our FPS to 60 right now until we add the other limiter later on. Now that we have this running, we need to, let's see here, I'm going to go down to input. Wait, first, actually, you want to do the display update. So just go ahead on the bottom of the input and put display update, and this will make it so the display will actually work correctly. And then we're going to do display.sync to sync it to 60 FPS. We're capping it out to 60 because we don't want to go any higher than that. And for input, I'm just going to quickly throw this in here so it'll work, is if display.is close requested, which means if the player clicked the escape button on the window, then we're going to set running to false. And when you set running to false, this program will automatically exit. Now, for cleanup, we want to do display.destroy, because we no longer want the display to be here. We want to get rid of it. And then we're going to do system.exit 0. And now, if we run this, it should pop up a display. If I did it right. Here we go. Oh, probably get rid of play claw. Yep, a blank window will open up, and it'll say Tutorial Zombie Game in the top left corner, and we can use minimize. All that works. This one's disabled, but we can exit out of it, which is good. So now we're set where we actually have a display going. I'm also going to make it, well, actually I'll save that for a little bit later, the keyboard stuff. But now what we need to do is, how are we going to draw the images to the screen? We're going to be using OpenGL. We're not going to be using Java forms that other people tend to use when they start out. OpenGL is quite simple once you actually learn the basics of how to use it. So I'm just going to type up some OpenGL right now. I'm going to type in, oh actually, we want to statically import it. And then we're going to statically import OpenGL 11 just because it's a pretty stable one to be using right now. And statically importing it is going to allow us to just type in something like this, and then for the coordinates for the GL viewport we're going to put in 0, 0, width, height. This will make it so that our viewport will align up with our window, so that they work together perfectly. Alrighty. I'm going to separate the code a little bit. Now, I want to set the GL matrix mode. And we're going to set that to GL projection. Oh, if I can actually type. Basically, in GL projection, we can actually set the camera. Oh, geez. We can actually set all the information about the camera and everything like that. The very basics. We want to do GL ortho now. And then with GL ortho, we have to put in, this is how actually our coordinate system works. Some people prefers to have the coordinate system where 0, 0 is the bottom left, which actually makes more sense when it comes to geometry that people have learned in school. But I've gotten really accustomed to having the 0, 0 point in the top left, because that's where it is in most other computer applications that you program. So I'm going to set it up like that. So I'm going to put 0, width, height, 0, and then that sets up the screen so that the 0, 0 point is in the top left, and as you go down, it goes up. And as you go to the right, X will go up. And then if you want to be 2D, you'll set the clipping to be 1 and -1, because we're just making a 2D game, and so that will be sufficient. Now that we're done with that, we can switch our GL matrix mode to GL model view. And you don't have to understand all this completely. Once we get past all this stuff, it'll be much easier. But when we get deeper into actually rendering the graphics, you'll start to understand this much easier. Right now, we're going to enable GL blending, which is going to allow us to have transparencies on our images so that we can see through them, so that we can see backgrounds below them and all that. Every game has it, so we should just enable it. And then here's where we actually set the GL blend function, where GL1 minus source alpha. And what this does is it sets it up so that the transparency on an image, like if you go into paint.net or Photoshop and you create an image with the transparency on it, it will work properly like it's supposed to. And now that we're done with this, we're going to go down to the render code. What we need to do down here, actually we're going to take a display update and display sync, and we're going to move it down to the bottom of render because it works better down there for some reason. So what we're going to do in render is at the top we're going to run GL clear, so we can clear, we have to remove the old image before we place the new image on, otherwise you'll get some really weird images going on. And then this will remove the old image, and then we're going to do GL load identity again. And then right here is where our render code actually goes once we get to that point. Now we have OpenGL enabled. I'm going to quickly run this to make sure I have it set up correctly. It appears like I have. And alrighty, we have OpenGL. On the next tutorial, we're actually going to add in a player object and allow them to move around using the W, S, A, and D keys. They're just going to be a colored square at first, and then we'll add in graphics later on.